The clock struck midnight, and Amelia's voice floated across the darkened rooms of Windmere Cove. Her radio studio, perched above the ocean, window open to the hush of rolling tides, felt both sacred and solitary. Another quiet night, another handful of insomniacs hanging on her every word, their loneliness echoing through static. A soft tap at the window startled her. She peeked through worn shutters. Just the lighthouse beam sweeping through the mist. The old place next door had been empty for months, but a moving truck arrived that afternoon. New neighbor, perhaps? Her curiosity flickered, but she turned back to the mic. "Tell me your stories," she invited, her voice gentle. Tonight's theme, second chances. She listened to tales of lost love, faded dreams, and cautious hope, her heart quietly aching with her callers. The clock blinked 2 a.m. She signed off, switched down the lights, wrapped in her cardigan, and stepped outside. The smell of salt was balm to her soul. Night smeared indigo across the sky. A figure stood at the edge of the dune, telescope angled at the stars. He looked up as Amelia approached, a man about her age, hair tousled, sweater sleeves pushed to the elbows. "Hi," Amelia called softly, uncertain. "You're up late too." "Working," he answered, glancing at the telescope. "Icus moved in. The lighthouse." She grinned, all nerves. "I'm Amelia, night owl, radio host." "Leo," he replied. He offered, his voice quiet, almost shy. "I used to watch the stars with someone. Now, it's just me." They stood together, silence stretching easy between them. Above, Orion glittered bravely over the restless surf. "I talk to strangers all night," she said at last. "Funny how it can still feel lonely sometimes." He nodded, turning the telescope. "Maybe we could change that, at least for tonight. Want to see Jupiter?" She peered through the eyepiece. Breath caught at the planet's shimmering rings. When she looked up, Leo was watching her, all hopeful vulnerability. "Amazing," she whispered. The stars above were endless, for the first time in a long while. So did the road ahead. The morning after was always hardest. Amelia's alarm chimed at noon. Her apartment washed pale gold by the sun's slow ascent. Something about the previous night's encounter tugged at her thoughts, a gentle pulse beneath her routine. She listened back to her show, picking apart her own words and the tremor of excitement in her voice from meeting Leo. By late afternoon, Amelia found herself wandering the cove's small market street. Seashell jewelry, fresh bread, and the tang of brewing coffee filled the air. She stopped at the bakery, only half focused on the pastries behind the glass. "I'd recommend the lemon scone," came a voice beside her. Amelia turned, surprised to see Leo holding a coffee cup, a sheepish grin tugging at his lips. "I was going to make a joke about breakfast for astronomers, but I'm probably too new in town for bad humor." She smiled, warmth blooming in her chest. "I like a good bad joke. You're up awfully early for someone who stargazes till dawn." He shrugged. "I wanted to see what happens to Windmere Cove by daylight, but it does feel a little less magical." Their banter fluttered between awkward and easy, each word an invitation to know each other just a little more. The shop bell jingled. The barista eyed them, as if a story were writing itself right in front of her counter. "Want to walk with me?" Leo asked, holding up his cup. She nodded, and they wandered the short pier, gulls wheeling above like white scraps of hope. "Do you miss where you came from?" Amelia ventured, watching the sun ripple on the water. "Sometimes," Leo replied, looking out over the horizon, his tone heavy with memory. Someone I loved. She loved the stars more than anything. After we lost her, I needed new constellations. Maybe that's what second chances are, Amelia offered gently. New places, new stars. They stood quietly for a moment. The hush between them no longer lonely, but brimming with possibility. As they parted at the path to the lighthouse, Leo touched Amelia's arm softly. Come by tonight, if you're up. I could use the company. I'm always up, she replied, her smile lingering long after he turned away. Underneath her skin, hope was blooming, unexpected but very much alive. Dusk rolled in with the tide, painting the sky in streaks of lavender and coral. Amelia's hands trembled as she set up for her show. She barely recognized herself in the mirror, cheeks flushed, lips unconsciously smiling. After her shift, she walked the moonlit path to Leo's door. The lighthouse stood like a watchful guardian against the night, its gentle beams sweeping across the sand. She could see him through the window. Half hidden by stacks of star charts and scattered books, his brow furrowed in concentration. She knocked lightly. Leo opened the door, his face brightening. You came. You invited me, she replied, nerves prickling and pleasant all at once. He ushered her inside. The cozy space smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. A low lamp cast warm halos across the cramped living room, making the space feel intimate, as if nothing existed beyond its walls. I'm cataloging meteor showers for an article, he said, waving at the clutter. But honestly, I'm a little out of my depth. Want to help? Amelia grinned. As long as you promise not to quiz me on planet names. They sat shoulder to shoulder, poring over sky sketches and Leo's neat looping notes. Their fingers brushed, sending sparks up Amelia's arm. You know, Leo said shyly, I haven't laughed this much since a long time ago. Amelia met his gaze, searching his eyes for the truth underneath his words. It's been a while for me too. A sudden boom of thunder rattled the window. Rain swept in, lashing the lighthouse in sheets. Lightning lit up the room, making their shadows dance. Leo laughed. Looks like you're trapped. You don't mind a bit of stormy weather, do you? She shook her head. Only if you promise to let me pick the next constellation. They took turns drawing their favorite star patterns on fogged-up panes. Stories tumbling from their lips, his full of old wounds and hopes, hers edged with humor and secret longing. Somewhere between the downpour and shy confessions, Amelia realized she wasn't scared of the storm at all. With Leo beside her, even the wildest night felt safe, as if something new was beginning just outside the glass. When the rain finally broke at sunrise, Amelia blinked away sleepiness, realizing she'd spent the whole night with Leo. The lighthouse windows gleamed with sunlight, and the world seemed scrubbed fresh. Leo handed her a mug of coffee. We made it through the storm, he said, voice low and affectionate. She sipped, holding his gaze. I can't remember the last time I watched the sun come up with someone. He smiled, the kind of smile that banishes shadows. Most people only see the lighthouse as a warning in the dark, but sometimes it's a place to find your way home. Amelia thought about her radio listeners, voices drifting in from empty rooms, always searching, always hoping. She saw something of herself in their confessions, and now, a little of Leo. "Do you ever get scared starting over?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, shoulders tensing, as if bracing for another wave. "All the time. But last night, sitting with you, it felt less like starting over and more like turning a page." They stood in companionable silence, watching the golden light spill over the coast. Leo broke the quiet, shifting nervously. "I want to show you something. Tonight, after your shift?" Amelia nodded, curiosity piqued. Something in Leo's eyes, an untold story, a hidden sorrow, felt like an invitation. "I'll be here," she promised. Later, after a shower and a few hours' sleep, Amelia returned to her familiar studio. But every word she spoke was colored by anticipation. Her regular callers teased her about the brightness in her voice, picking up on a happiness she hadn't known she'd revealed. When midnight arrived, she finished her show in a rush, heart pounding, and hurried across the silent dunes toward the lighthouse. Leo was waiting outside, holding a battered journal. Together, they climbed the winding spiral staircase to the lantern room. The sky was clear, dizzying with stars. "This was hers," Leo said quietly, handing her the journal. "All our notes, dreams, discoveries. I haven't shown anyone since she left. But you, I want you to see." Amelia's breath caught, overwhelmed by trust. As she opened the first page, she realized that letting someone in meant sharing more than laughter or midnight walks. It meant sharing the pain, too. Under the dawn-streaked sky, she was ready to try. Turning the journal pages, Amelia absorbed sketches of constellations and sloping notes in different hands. Leo's blocky, certain script, and another that curved tenderly above it. Regret and longing lingered in the margins, but so did joy. She traced faded ink with her fingertip, glancing at Leo. He spoke softly, almost afraid. "Sophie, she was my partner in everything. I kept thinking I couldn't move forward until I let her go. But maybe it's more about carrying her with me, just differently." Amelia shut the journal gently. "Thank you for trusting me. If you ever want to talk about her, or anything, I'll listen." Leo smiled, small but grateful. "I want to know your story too." They sat together in the lantern's golden glow, sharing memories. Amelia spoke haltingly of her father's old jazz records, her mother vanishing into her own silences, the first time she understood what it meant to be alone. Then, the comfort she found behind the radio mic, the solace in strangers' voices. Thunder rumbled distantly, but no rain followed. The air between them softened. Do you ever wish you could talk to someone, really talk, without editing yourself for radio listeners? Leo asked. She smiled ruefully. All the time. It's harder to be honest off-air. I guess I worry people won't like the uncensored version of me. He leaned closer, voice warm. I do. Like you, I mean. The real you, even with the rough edges. Amelia's cheeks warmed. She didn't back away. With the ocean whispering below, Leo reached for her hand. Can I show you Jupiter again? This time, I want to share what I see. Not just the science, but how it makes me feel. She nodded, heart thudding. He guided her to the telescope, carefully positioning her. As she looked through the lens, Leo spoke in wonder about storms 1,000 times bigger than Earth, and the beauty of moons dancing in orbit, his passion glowing in every word. She met his eyes, voice trembling and true. I see it, and I see you, Leo. He squeezed her hand, letting silence linger. The stars held their breath, and for the first time, Amelia wished the night would never end. Days slipped easily into nights, tangled in a rhythm of routine and unexpected joy. Amelia's show became brighter, deeper. Stories flowed from her lips with newfound warmth. Listeners noticed, their calls dotted with laughter and hope, contagious even through the airwaves. One night, while dusk melted into indigo, Leo knocked on Amelia's door with a picnic basket and 2 mismatched blankets under his arm. "Clear sky tonight," he said, a spark of mischief in his eyes. "Perfect for a little adventure." "I'm not sure there's much adventure in Windmere at midnight, unless you're planning to show me a black hole behind the dunes," she teased, slipping her sweater over her shoulders. He grinned. "You'll see." They walked the shoreline, wind playful in their hair. At an outcrop of driftwood, Leo spread the blankets and poured tea into tin cups. The world was hushed but alive, a lighthouse beacon sweeping, and the gentle thrum of waves. Amelia hugged her knees, watching Leo as he set up his travel telescope. "Did you ever think you'd end up someplace like this?" He shook his head, pondering. "Never. I always thought I'd be in a city, surrounded by noise, never able to hear anything over my own thoughts. Here, there's space for silence, space to listen." She nudged him. "You listen better than anyone I've ever met." "Only because you talk about things that matter," he said, sincerity catching her off guard. A fill of quiet passed, deep and easy. Overhead, the Perseid streaked across the night in a silent, shimmering show. "Make a wish," Amelia whispered. Leo glanced sideways at her. "Did you?" She laughed softly. "Maybe I already have everything I could wish for." The breeze stilled. A confession hummed between them. Leo shifted on the blanket, then reached for her hand. The touch, tentative yet full of promise, made Amelia's heart stumble in her chest. "I'm glad you're here, Amelia," Leo said, his thumb grazing her knuckles. "Even if I'm still learning how to hope again." She squeezed his hand, replaying his words in her mind as if they were a favorite song. "We can learn together," she replied, "one night at a time." True summer settled over Windmere Cove, bringing busy days and sleepless, starlit nights. Amelia found herself looking for excuses to slip out of the radio booth early, her thoughts drifting to Leo as naturally as the tide. Her listeners noticed the glow in her voice, a happiness even her stories couldn't disguise. One Tuesday evening, as she was closing the studio, a call came in from a familiar voice. It was Mrs. Tilly, the kindly widow who called every week. "You sound lighter, dear," Mrs. Tilly teased. "It's nice to hear a heart mending on the radio." Amelia blushed in spite of herself. Maybe I've met someone who looks at the same stars I do. "Make sure he knows it," Mrs. Tilly said gently before hanging up. That night, the wind was sharp with the promise of rain, but Amelia refused to let it keep her inside. She grabbed her raincoat and marched to the lighthouse with a bag of blueberry muffins. When she reached the top of the winding stairs, Leo stood by the window, his shoulders tense and distant, lost in thought. "Hey," she said, voice tentative. "Blueberries for your midnight calculations." He took the bag, but didn't smile. "Thank you. Sorry, I'm distracted." She saw the tension in his jaw, the clouded look in his eyes. "Want to talk about it?" Leo hesitated before answering. "I got a call this morning," an offer to go back to the university, run a big project. Something I've worked my whole career toward. Amelia's heart stumbled, her good mood faltering. That's amazing, right? He met her eyes, earnest yet troubled. It's what I thought I wanted. But you, this place, this peace, I'd be giving that up. I don't know if I'm ready. Amelia fought back her fears, choosing honesty. If you go, I'll miss you. But it's your dream, Leo. I won't stand in the way. He stepped closer, reaching for her hand. Rain hammered the windows, thunder rumbling like distant applause. I don't want to leave. Then don't, she whispered, voice trembling. Or, if you do, let me say goodbye the right way. They stood close in the lantern light, the storm howling outside, uncertainty crackling between them. For the first time, the future felt as uncharted as the sky above. But neither one was ready to let go just yet. The days that followed were restless, each sunrise leaving more questions than answers. Amelia tried to bury herself in stories, her own and those her callers trusted her with. But thoughts of Leo distracted her, coloring every song, every whispered confession in the studio. Leo's decision hung between them, like ocean fog. They still walked the shoreline by night, but now their silences were complicated. Would you stay for love? Could you leave for a dream? One evening, after an almost sleepless day, Amelia found Leo waiting for her at the edge of the surf. The lighthouse glowed gently behind him, brighter than any other night. He held a small envelope in his hand, eyes troubled and searching. The university's waiting for an answer, he said quietly. Amelia didn't trust herself to speak at first. And? Leo looked up at the stars, at the scattered constellations and clusters they'd named in shared whispers. Half of me wants to go. The other half is here. With you. I'm scared, Amelia. I lost someone once. I know what it feels like to regret. And I know what it costs to stay behind. She felt tears prick, but smiled anyway, reaching for his hand. What would happen if you chose us? If you chose this? He squeezed her fingers. Maybe I'd discover something bigger, and anything a telescope could show me. They turned to walk the familiar path back to the lighthouse, waves frothing around their ankles. The night felt endless, a tightrope between holding on and letting go. Inside, Leo set the unopened envelope on the table. Could we just pretend for one more night? Like there are no decisions to make? Amelia nodded. She pulled records from the shelf, and he made tea, filling the space with music and quiet conversation. Laughter trickled in, bittersweet, but real. When the record ended, Leo looked at her, his gaze unwavering. If I go, will you wait for me? Amelia's breath caught. I think I'd wait my whole life, if I had to. But I want what's best for you, even if it hurts. He touched her cheek gently, and they stood in the hush, longing and love tangled together. The choice still unmade, pressed on their hearts, pushing them both toward a dawn neither could yet see. The final week of August pressed down, thick with anticipation. The air shimmered with heat by day and cooled into mist at night. The lighthouse beam a hopeful sweep across the sleeping cove. Every evening, Amelia's listeners called in, sensing the change in her voice, the quiet ache behind her laughter. She poured herself into her midnight broadcast, not ready to say goodbye to the ritual that had shaped her lonely nights. One caller, A young girl named Evie confessed a secret crush and asked, "How do you know it's love, not just stardust in your eyes?" Amelia hesitated, her gaze drifting through the studio window to the lighthouse light. "You know," she said softly, "when you're willing to let yourself be seen. By them, by yourself, by the whole world, even if it scares you." She ended the show, voice soft but steady, and found herself running toward the lighthouse, heart pounding. She reached the door. Rain slick on her hair and clothes, the envelope from the university still on Leo's kitchen table. Inside, Leo stood by the window, clutching the well-worn journal. He turned as she entered, vulnerability raw on his face. "I haven't opened it," he admitted, eyes flickering with fear and hope. "I keep thinking if I do, everything changes." Amelia stepped closer. "You don't have to choose right now, but you do have to believe you're allowed happiness, Leo. Not just for Sophie or for me. This happiness is yours." He looked away, shoulders shaking. "What if I'm not brave enough to start over again? What if I lose myself?" She took his hand, anchoring him. "You won't. I'll be right here. And if you need to chase your dream, I'll send you off with love. But you won't lose me, not really. Not unless you want to." Then, slowly, Leo tore open the envelope. His hands trembled as he read, tears splashing onto the page. A plane ticket. A project offer. A life he'd almost forgotten to want. Silence filled the room, broken at last by Leo's whispered, "What do I do, Amelia?" She wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. Outside, the stars blinked uncertainly above the waves. The decision still waited for dawn. But tonight, they had each other, hearts bound by hope, uncertainty, and the promise of a new beginning just over the horizon. The first scarlet rays of dawn pressed gently through the lighthouse windows. Leo hadn't slept. Neither had Amelia. They sat together on the lantern room floor, wrapped in one blanket, backs pressed against the cool glass, watching the world outside shift from blue to gold. A brand new day unfolding. The university letter lay on the floor beside them, opened at last, its words still echoing in the space between their hopes and fears. The journal, too, sat nearby, a testament to everything Leo had been, everything he could become. Amelia rested her head on his shoulder. "You still haven't decided. Maybe you don't need to, not this very moment." Leo closed his eyes, breathing her in. "Do you think there's a way to have both? You and the stars?" She smiled, running a thumb along his hand. "Maybe part of loving someone is letting them be more than you imagined, just like part of loving yourself is daring to dream beyond what you were before." He nodded slowly, heart trembling, but stronger now. "What if I go for a while? Not for forever, just to see if the sky feels different on the other side. Could we try that? Could I come back to you?" Amelia's eyes shimmered with tears, but there was no fear in her voice. "You'll always find your way home. I'll be here, on the air, under the stars. It'll just mean our story has more chapters." A gentle peace settled over them. Leo tucked a strand of Amelia's hair behind her ear. "I never expected to find you. Not here, not now." She grinned through her tears. "That makes two of us. Who knew heartbreak and hope would share the same sky?" They kissed, slow and sure, as the morning lit up the ocean. Together, they packed the envelope and the journal. Leo would leave by train that evening. Not for an ending, but for a beginning neither of them could have imagined months before. Before he left, they took one last walk along the shore, toes in the surf, hands laced tight. "Promise me," Amelia said, standing in the break of sunlight, "that when you discover something beautiful on any planet, under any sky, you'll come back and tell me the story." He smiled, eyes filled with longing and love. "I promise. And you, keep the night bright for me. I'll listen for your voice every chance I get." As the train pulled away, Amelia stood waving in the dawn, 1,000 starlit memories behind her, and all the future's possibility before her. Some goodbyes aren't forever. Some stories are just beginning. Hers, Leo's, and all those who dare to hope for a second chance. And every night, as the radio waves spilled over the lonely, beautiful coast, Amelia spoke to the stars. For this time, she knew someone, somewhere, was listening.